The next speaker actually made me blush. She came up to me and said, "You did a great job." And that just made my day. And she just has the best energy. This is going to be our final speaker. Then we're going to go into Q&A for those that stick around. And, make sure you connect with the folks next to you and everyone in the room. And let's bring up Ann Curry.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, and I'm going to give you a formula that you can take to go from 0 to 20 million. How does that sound? It's a formula. You like that? All right. Well, I want to get to know you guys a little bit. So my name is Ann Curry. I'm born and raised in Tacoma, and I was a teacher. I was making $5 an hour. Wow. And I went into real estate, and I built up a $20 million portfolio. I worked really hard to do that. The formula I'm going to give you is doing that, but not working quite as hard. Does that sound good? But I want to know, how many of you were like me and put yourself in the least likely to succeed in real estate club? How many? You got to be honest. You gotta be honest. I see some hands. Everybody else felt like, oh, I'm gonna get into real estate and I'm in a natural. I'm just gonna make a bunch of money. Is that where the rest of you guys were? I put myself in the least likely to succeed category because there's lots of reasons why, right? My story goes back 30 years ago. That's when I started. I grew up in a house full of love, but didn't have any money. 70s, energy crisis. I got in trouble. I remember I was one of those kids who wanted to do everything right. I was super conscientious. My dad just had to look at me and I would cry if I did something wrong. I was that kid. But I remember one day, it was in the 70s, and I got in trouble because I turned the heat up past 68. Any 70s kids, right? Energy was so expensive, you couldn't turn the heat on. But it was a lovely home, it was great, but I didn't really learn much about money, and I certainly didn't learn about making money. So my dad thought I would be a great teacher. So I thought, okay, great, I'll go into teaching. Again, I was a compliant child. I did what I was asked to do. And my first job was making $5 an hour. And my husband, who is amazing, is in social work and ministry, and he was making $14,000 a year. So we were rolling in it, right? So I remember I was sitting on the couch. My son was 8 weeks old. I was still teaching. And I looked at this little guy, and I'm quite the planner. I'm thinking far ahead. And I'm holding this 8-week-old, and I thought, how am I going to get this kid through college on $5 an hour? And it was just then that real estate popped in my brain. Who else? Was it Raphael? Did you say something about going to bed and having to dream about subways? Yep. And subway wouldn't go out of your head? Yep. And you felt like that was a divine moment? Correct. I was holding my 8-week-old, and real estate popped in my head. Looking back, that was a divine moment because I hadn't been thinking about real estate since I was 15. When I was 15, I was babysitting, not making $5 an hour. I think it was 75 cents an hour back then. And the lady I was babysitting for lived in a really nice neighborhood. Next door, the house was going through a renovation. And I remember saying to her, what's happening next door? And she's like, oh, this doctor's wife bought this house and it needed a lot of work and she's gonna fix it up and then she's gonna sell it. And I was like, what? That is the coolest thing I ever, and I was 15. It was just these seeds planted, right? And then it seemed like seeds were planted throughout kind of my early days. When I thought of real estate, I was thinking about the lady that I met when I was 15 that was flipping a house. Flipping wasn't even a word, you guys. That was in 1980s, okay? So she was flipping a house. I thought, that is so cool. It's interesting, though, how I believe the right people come into our path. People like Kenny, like Rico. You all have people. You're here today because somebody invited you. You met somebody that invited you to something in real estate, and now you're here, right? So that's how life works. I believe that God sends the right people into our lives, and those people show up to show us something. So 8-week-old son, I think real estate, 2 years goes by. Do things happen instantaneously? Not always, right? We have a dream. We want to own a Subway. We want to own a UPS. That was so cool, Raphael. I was so inspired by your story. Sabrina, single mom, trying to figure it out, trying to make money, trying to have a better life for her kid. Things don't happen instantly. In fact, one of my company's mottos is get rich slow. This is not a get rich fast scheme. 2 years later, I'm sitting at a women's group and some lady walks in and sits next to me, and I do what I normally do. I said, "Hi, I'm Ann. What's your name?" She said, "I'm Val." And I said, "Oh, hi, Val. Tell me about you." She said, "Oh, we just moved here from California. My husband owns rentals, and that's what he does full time." And immediately, again, real estate popped back into my mind, and I said, "What? Your husband owns how many rentals?" She said, "He owns 50 single-family houses as rentals." I said, "And that's what he does full time?" Because remember, again, gang, I'm looking for real estate, and that was when there was no cell phones, there was no HGTV, there was no internet. We couldn't just pull up people that were doing all these cool things. The only thing you knew was people you knew, books you read, and maybe Carlton Sheets on, late night TV, right? You know, Mark. So I said, "Well, would you introduce me to him?" I was kind of settling on my words. And she said, "Yeah." So I met this husband of Val's named Dan, and Dan became a mentor of mine for 7 years. Dan owned 50 single-family houses as rentals. And when I was making $5 an hour, and my husband was making $14,000 a year, I went home after meeting Dan, and I wrote on a little piece of paper, "I will own 50 single-family homes." I was broke, guys. We were driving a Pinto. We were in a little apartment. And I put that little piece of paper in my purse. I wrote another one, and I put it next to my bed, and it hung out there. And I met Dan. And for 7 years, Dan showed me how to buy a dinky, icky, stinky little house like you saw Sabrina buying. And I bought that house for $60,000. I didn't have the down payment. I did have a hard money lender like a Melissa that Dan introduced me to. But I went to my aunt and I said, "Okay, Aunt Sharon, I want to buy this house, and I know I'm only making $5 an hour, but I need a little bit of money, and I think I can make this work because I have this guy named Dan." And she's like, "Yeah, okay." So she lent me $5,000, got hard money loan. Dan walked me through the whole process. I couldn't afford to hire any contractors, so I did the work myself, and I was painting, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I couldn't call Dan because I didn't have a cell phone because cell phones didn't exist. And so, I just asked Dan, when I would see him. But what I figured out was other people know how to do this stuff. So I drive my little Pinto over to Home Depot, and I look around for these guys that look like they knew what they were doing, and they're usually old, because they have overalls on and stuff. And I would say, "Oh, excuse me, sir, my toilet's doing this, and I don't really know how to fix it." And he'd say, "Oh, come over here to the plumbing aisle," and he'd pick out the little kit, and he'd say, "Just follow the instructions and just go do that." That's how I fixed up my first house. And we bought it for $60,000. I put about $20,000 into it. That house appraised for $120,000, and I burned my way out of it. And I put a renter in it, and it was working, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I just did this," and I paid my aunt back, and I was hooked, you guys. I was like, me, I did that. I didn't grow up with money, but I fixed up the house, and I put a renter in it. I have my first house. Going back, when I was dating my husband, he said, "Honey, we're going to be, in the ministry, and we might never afford a house. And so, I just want you to know we might be renting forever." And so these are all these things going on. And but I did it. I got my first one. And I thought, if I can do that, I can do another one. So I did another one, I did another one, then I ran out of money, and then I had to sell it, and that was called a flip. But I kept that little piece of paper in my purse and next to my bed. And you know that 16 years later, I closed on 50 single-family houses as rentals in one transaction. One. So be careful what you put on paper. Those of you who are just getting started, or you put yourself in the least likely to succeed in real estate club, write it down, you guys. You don't have to know how you're going to get there right now, especially those of you who are beginning. This is my 30-year story. So that might sound like a lot, like, oh, cool, Ann, you built up 20 million, good for you. But I had to thumb my way through this stuff and figure it out. And I, volunteered for Dan for 7 years as he mentored me, and I volunteered to scrub floors and cut hedges and clean refrigerators, just so that he would infuse his knowledge into me. And that's the kind of stuff that Kenny and Rico and Sabrina and all these people in this room want to do for you, because they want you to succeed. You get to be, in my stage of life, and it's like, why do we do this now? Like, why am I taking a Saturday to come talk? Because we feel the need to give back to you, so then you go be successful. It's not good enough for us just to be in real estate and maybe, built up a portfolio and all that. We have to give back. So it is almost like my ethical duty to come up to here and talk to you guys about how you can do it too. So I took the long way. I worked really hard to do all that stuff. I'm going to give you a little formula, and I have slides, but we'll just do this freestyle, okay? You guys have had so much information. Everything you've learned today, you could take home and make hundreds of thousands of dollars. So go the UPS route, go the subway route, go the real estate holding route, any route you take from the speakers, you guys can go make money. So this has been completely amazing. So with flips and holds, and we had at our high, we had 300 units in and around Tacoma. And that was amazing. We scaled it back a little bit because we wanted to put that money into another endeavor that my husband and I are doing right now. We got up to 300 units, and what I would say to you, especially those of you who are kind of in it, you're not quite where you want to be, you can do this a lot simpler than how I did it. I skinned my knees, I bought multifamily, we built new construction, we've built townhomes, we've done all the things. Here's a simple formula. You guys ready for it? These especially for you that are under 40. How many are under 40-ish in the room? Okay, this is for you guys, because this is gonna leverage appreciation. We all hear about appreciation. You guys know that certain areas of the country have appreciation, certain areas of the country don't have as much appreciation. We all understand that, right? You happen to live in a part of the world that has natural appreciation, okay? So let's just assume that you just want to, and I got this idea from Thatch. How many are Thatch Win followers, okay? This idea comes from Thatch, but this is the way, if I could go back 30 years, this is the way I would do it. This is so much simpler than all the stuff that I've done. So this is from Thatch. If you just buy 5 houses, how many can picture all they need is 5? Can you raise your hand? You can do 5 houses? Anybody in this room could do 5 houses, okay? And we're going to use the power of appreciation to get us to your 20 million. Let's do 7 to 10 years. Let's say you bought one $500,000 house. Can you guys picture that? You can do that in Tacoma, maybe not in Seattle. You can do that in Tacoma, or maybe parts of Arizona. And you have a $500,000 house. In 7 to 10 years, let's say that house is worth $1 million, minus what you bought it for. We're not assuming that you paid anything down. That house in 7 to 10 years, because if you go back in history and you look at Washington, most of Washington, okay, you take out the great, 2008 crash, all that stuff. I'm just talking, if you go back in history and you do averages, 7 to 10 years appreciation, then you'd have $500,000 in equity. You guys following me so far? Let's say you have 2 houses, and those 2 houses cost you $1 million. In 7 to 10 years, that's $2 million minus what you owe, $1 million. You You have $1 million. You guys following me? Let's go all the way up to, let's say you have 5 houses. Easy to do, especially if you just did one a year. Then you bought those for 2.5 million. In 7 to 10 years, they're worth 5 million. You guys following the math? Minus what you owe, you're $2.5 million richer by owning 5 houses in 7 to 10 years. You guys with me so far? All right, multi-millionaire. Just those 5 houses, another, let's say 10 to 20 years, now we're worth 5 million. Another 20 to 30 years, now you're at $10 million by buying 5 houses. That's why I said, if you're in the 40-ish or under, this is for you guys. This is what I'm teaching my daughters, 30, to do. I said, Lauren, you don't have to do real estate full time. She likes doing other things. She loves marketing. She loves all these other. So just buy your 5 houses and then just sit and do nothing. Just let the appreciation ride this through. If you don't want to do full time, you can supersize your cash flow by doing pad split. You can build ADUs, which I think I'm more excited about the ADU strategy than I have been about anything in a really long time. Because when you can build those things and they're worth $150,000 or $200,000 more than what you built them for, that's awesome. I love pad split. We're getting into pad split. We're excited about pad split, but we're just talking about equity, guys. We're not even talking about cash flow. What I tell my clients all the time is, listen, you're not going to get rich off of cash flow. You're not going to get rich off of $200 a month on this unit and $200 a month on that unit. You're going to get rich by building equity. And how do you build equity? You build equity with time, and you build equity by forcing appreciation, by buying a stinky house like Sabrina does, by fixing it up, by having it worth $100,000 more than what you bought it for. That's the way you're going to actually build your wealth. And I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't want to have true wealth. That's the kind of stuff we get to pass on. That's the kind of stuff that my parents didn't get to do for us, but I get to do for my kids and I get to do for my grandkids. 5 houses. Do you all think you could do 5 houses? 5 houses could be a game changer. Then you add in a little bit more cash flow because you're doing pad split. Or you force a little bit more appreciation because you're building DAUs. There's so many different ways to get there. And Kenny is a master of that, and Rico is a master of that. And you guys are in the right room to do it. But don't feel like you had to do what I did. I worked way too hard, you guys. So now I'm telling all my clients, just get to 5. And you can get to, all the goals that you ever want to do. So do I have agreement? You guys are going to get to 5? You can just do 5. Awesome. I love it. Why most people give up, and I think this is key because this affects all of us. So you're in a room and you listen to all these great speakers and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. This is awesome. I'm going to go home and do it. So you start down here because you knew nothing when you came. On the bottom of that graph. You knew not, well, I'm in a room where you guys knew stuff. But if you were new to this and you knew nothing, you came into a room like this and you learned all these ways to make all this money, and your confidence shoots way up. And you think, I'm gonna go, you're so excited, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna do it, and then you go home and you're like, okay, what did they say about that? How am I supposed to do that? Oh, that's right, I don't have any money. Oh, I forgot about the $20,000 of credit card bills that I have. And our reasons go down and our excitement goes down, right? So what this other graph shows, where it's kind of a continual curve up, is that's the point down here when you kind of were excited and then you have all these reasons why you can't do it. That's when you get discouraged. And that's when most people quit and they give up on their 5-house dream and they give up on their Subway dream because they're like, oh, I guess I can't do it. I don't have the money. My husband's only making $14,000 a year. What do I know? I'm only a teacher. And that's the point, gang, where you have to make the big commitment, which says, I may not know, but I can reach out to Kenny. I can reach out to Raphael. I can reach out to Sabrina. I may not know, I could reach out to Melissa. And then all of a sudden you get these people around you, and this is what Kenny and Rico are doing by having you in the room. you go from that valley of despair and you get more confidence and you get more confidence. You're like, oh, I met this person and they showed me the way. And all of a sudden, this is where the magic happens, is that sustainability where you're like, okay, I think I can do this. So my encouragement to you is not to walk out of the room just excited, and just know that you may come down and go and have all these reasons why maybe you can't, but to reach out and to get to the point where this right here is where you guys start to get your dreams, because you didn't give up. That's my story. I hope this is encouraging for you guys. Thank you for being so wonderful, and I'm doing Q&A now, so